I think we're on. So, see if this works. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a restoration. Here I've got a eBay Nintendo GameCube, which has seen better days. It is in disgusting condition. I'll show you some close-ups in a minute. Listed as not working for spares or repairs. And I've also got a pretty grim-looking controller as well, with missing parts and stained and again dirty and disgusting. We'll see if we can tear this down, clean it up, put it back together, test it, and see if it works. If we can have a look, yeah. So you can see here, like the control stick is missing, and it's really wobbly and floppy and gross. You've got loads of dirt on. Can I focus? Focus. Yeah, it's gross, and the back is disgusting and yellow, so we'll see what we can do about that. And the actual console itself, yeah, it looks like someone has been smoking into the console. The fan is covered in dust and pubes and fluff, yeah, and it's in better days. And even stuff like the buttons, you go to press them and it's like and it's full of disgustingness. So, bit of focus. So we have some tools for today. Oh god. It says audio Al from Die. Audio. Just waiting. If not, I'll swap it over to a different mic. Can someone say yes, Al? Yes. Yes, I can fucking hear you, Stephen. Stephen, can you hear me? Graham says yes, you can hear fine. Right, we'll crack on. So, we've got some specific tools that we need when you're taking apart Nintendo. And that's the same for Famicom, aka Super Nintendo, Nintendo Entertainment System, N64, everything. It all uses proprietary screws. This one, if I can zoom in, it's got like a kind of hex head thing, reverse hex head, which is, yeah, you have to buy it specifically. And then there's some like really tiny tri-wing screws, and that's about as close as my camera will go. So a couple of screwdrivers, literally this two is all you need, and then just a regular Phillips just for some screws. Once you get inside the case, you don't need the fancy screws anymore. Toothbrush for cleaning, brush for getting rid of pubes, and we've got a paintbrush as well for some of the more kind of finicky fiddly bits involving the electronics as well. So this is how you take apart a GameCube. Also, when it comes to it, a bit of, this is actually like peroxide for hair, because we need to bleach the disgusting stained parts. Bit of IPA for the electronics, and then Brasso, and that is actually for some of the polished parts. So I don't know if you can see the top here. Yeah, the shiny bit is well scratched, and actually Brasso will take a lot of that out. But we'll put that to the side. We'll see if we got time to get to the controller. Obviously, we lost 10 minutes fucking around with the with YouTube, but we can make up for lost time. Oh, and of course, one thing I forgot that you always need is to stay hydrated. Cheers, Liz. So, GameCube. Relatively simple, but packed full of goodies and a really cool console. Missing a couple of the bits on the bottom, but I've got some spares, so we can hopefully attack that. 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that lets you take the lid off. I have no idea what's inside here, by the way. If it's broken, I might have some spares. Usually the laser tends to be dirty for the disc, and that's why people list them as not working, because they just couldn't be bothered to clean the laser, and 9 times out of 10 that fixes it. I'm going to have a little jar for my screws because I'm organised like that, because you guys know I'm organised. Hello everyone, thanks for all the ridiculous spellings of my name and pronunciations of my name. That goes for you, Tom, if you're watching, and Steve and everyone else. If they don't come out, they should just fall out. There we go. And then the top part should just lift off. I wonder if we can get a sexier shot than that. Ooh, yeah. So this should just slide off. There we go. And then in here you can see how gross it is. So that is just other people's skin and pubes, and yeah, so we will be taking severe amounts of alcohol to this in a moment. I'm going to take apart the lid first, seeing as we've got it off. So let's just treat ourselves to a bit of focus. Oh, there we go. So the lid has a little button to open, and it also has a button there to reset and a button there to power, and they're all kind of attached with springs and stuff inside. So let's see if we can get right into this. Hello. There we go. Let's get rid of that. Yeah. So as I say, once you actually get inside the console, it is just Phillips screws, which make life a lot easier. And there's a little cool handle bit on the back, which just comes off. Can everyone see okay on the cameras and stuff? Give me a shout if anything's awry. Try and adjust. So another couple of screws in there. And we will knoll the shit out of this once it's all finished. I know you guys love a good knolling. And there's a couple of clips that hold down the lid, so the lid is sprung, and it just pops open, but it's on like a bit of a gear, which kind of makes it a really nice experience to open. It is a really beautifully designed console. I mean, this was off the back of, you know, the PlayStation 1, and Nintendo kind of back in the day always had an eye for delightful design. I'm not so keen on the Switch and some of the DS models. They got a bit kind of trying too hard to be cool, when what Nintendo are best at is being different. So as you can tell, I've taken these apart before in my time, and we just pop that open, he says, and then can actually, there we go. I'm going to keep all the stuff together. The little disc on top just pops out. There's a couple of tabs holding it in. There we go. Now back in the day, these used to actually be customizable, so you could get like different ones for different games. I think I had like a Resident Evil one back in the day, but yeah, needs a good clean up. It's pretty scratched, so there's a couple of parts here. Again, it's pretty gross in need of a good clean. So we'll come back to you. The buttons should just pop out, and they're just held in with little plastic tabs. So there's one. There's some of the clips holding stuff in. We'll give everything a good clean as well, and that also usually helps with like these buttons are stuck and things like that. In the front here, there's just a little diffuser for the LED, and that's just for the power when the power comes on. Just a couple of screws, and it's just a bit of clear acrylic. I'm not entirely sure what the actual console plastic is made from. I'm sure we can find out, or someone might already know. Who knows? I don't like the look of that bit of broken plastic. As I say, I've got some spares if worst comes to the worst. Again, these buttons just pop out. These tend to get jammed as well, so if like grubby kids get their grubby hands on it, and then keep pushing the button in, all dirt gets in there, and then basically people can't turn the console on and off. And it's nothing more than just needs a good clean. I think that's the same for every single bit of this, because it's pretty gross. What we're having 20 minutes. Don't force anything. Nothing is difficult to take apart. If you have to force it, you're doing it wrong. I mean, the fact that they've designed this in a way that can be so easily repaired is, well, it's refreshing. You know, you try and take apart electronics today and it's mostly just glued together, or glop tops on top of chips, and you can't swap stuff out. And it's all to save money basically, but also to stop you from repairing stuff. But every single part of this console is interchangeable and repairable. So as I say, I've got a load of spares. So that's the top taken apart. We'll lay everything out in a bit so it all looks nice and knolled. So then I guess we can move it a little bit like that. Oh, that's so much better, everyone says. You can zoom in. How much? Oh yeah. Look at that. You can actually see what you're doing now. Not like on the engine last time where you couldn't see anything. So first things first, the controller shield. So that just pops off, and it's got its own little board, and that board is actually attached with a ribbon cable, and it just pops out. As simple as that. So that's where your controllers go in. Little board behind, that's your power light there. You've got a battery here for things like clock and memory, so it knows what time it is when you turn the console off. And then this just actually comes apart with a couple of screws, so we can do that now. Oh, that thing's on for face recognition. Thank you for pointing that out. I will turn that off because that irritates me. Which camera is that on? It's on that one. Display. Autofocus live. Yep, still on. Might have to live with it. Quick. Autofocus isn't even on. I don't know why the square's still there. You're gonna have to live with it, I'm afraid. But we have other angles. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So this little shield just pops out. It's not in too bad condition. We'll give it a little bit of a clean with a paintbrush, get any dust off. But these very rarely fail. They're quite robust. Might give a little clean in there with some IPA just on the connectors. And then this thing, the culprit, this needs treating. So you can see the colour that it's meant to be and the colour that it is. So we've got some, we'll bleach that with the peroxide, and we'll do a bit of retro brighting. So I've got a UV box, and we can attack that later. So next up is the console. Believe me, that little box is annoying me more than it is you. But what can you do? Yeah, so I mean, we can see how much filth there is in here. Which is not helping electronics. It's pretty grim. Just give that a little brush off. So that's the that's actually the reset button there. That's the power button there. Click, click. It's got a nice two-way switch. Controller ports, and obviously we've got the disk drive laser. We've got air intake, and then underneath, actually it'd be quite nice to show that, there's the all the kind of connector ports. So Nintendo have always been a weird one for kind of future-proofing their consoles. This one here, I believe, is for the Game Boy adapter. So you could plug a Game Boy adapter in the bottom and play Game Boy games on the console. This one was for the serial port 1, which had the network adapter, so you could actually go online with this console. I think there was a few games like Smash Brothers and stuff where you could play online. And then the third one, I can't remember what it was that for, but there's basically various peripherals that you could plug onto the console onto. Some of them took off, some of them were successful. I know in Japan a lot of them were a lot more successful than in the UK and in the States. But yeah, it was just Nintendo being ahead of the game, as always. Let's just switch the camera on and off, as is tradition. Anyone that's seen my live streams before. Manual focus. Okay, so now we need to take this bad boy apart, and this consists of just lots and lots of screws. So the first thing you need to take off is the fan, and it's also the grossest thing to come off. So one screw there, and another screw there. And you need to take this off first because all the other screws are underneath the fan, basically. So there's kind of an order of operations, which if you don't know, the first time it can be really annoying because you kind of trying to figure out which bits to take off. This is just attached by this simple wire there. All it does is pull out. Again, all modular. You know, if the fan module breaks, it's just got the power switch and the fan, that's it. Super simple. I wish electronics were still this simple. And now there's just a bunch of screws all the way around. So bear with me. What would be super nice is like a low-powered electric screwdriver. Just like one of those like tiny little kind of like hobby ones. I think Bosch do one. It's pretty cool. Just for stuff like this, really. I wouldn't put the Makita onto this. I'd probably strip a load of threads, but and also you don't want to screw stuff in to plastic, obviously, with a power screwdriver because you'll just go right through it. So there's 5 along this. I mean, this is excessive. If you think of somebody in an assembly line, whether it's robotically or manually, putting in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 screws just to hold down a part of the console. It's time consuming, it's expensive. Every screw costs money. Every screw hole costs money because you need to manufacture it. And that's why a lot of stuff now is just glued. Or mechanically fit. It could just be a plastic tab that's actually part of the frame that locks in. I've not taken apart the PS5, but I have done the PS4 and the PS3, and they kind of, with each module, with each version of the console, they get a little bit more anti-repair friendly. But it's basically reducing cost. They'll bring out the console to begin with, and then they'll bring out another model that's cheaper, and they'll call it Slim Mode or something, or Light or X. And basically what they mean is cheap. And usually it's removing mechanical parts or removing a motorized disc tray, or making things more accessible, basically, from the original prototype. Which is fair enough. It's a business, but I like to see how things work. So 2 more screws you can actually get into the console. So the last 2 here. These are a little bit tight, and I think one of the main reasons is because it's so dirty as well. But the good thing, I think, this has never been taken apart before, so there's a high chance we should be able to fix it. As I say, we'll just clean this. And now this just pops off, he says. Take these tiny ones out of the controller. So you can see here on the controller shield. Actually, this little white box is quite handy. The little spring there for the contact for the memory card. This one is completely mashed up. So somebody, probably a kid, has tried to jam something in here, and mashed it up. So I've got replacement ones of those, we can swap it out, that's no problem. But these need to come out first. This is the last thing holding it in. What time now? Halfway there. I think we'll be alright. So we're doing a couple of those. As I say, that's broken. And this should now just pop off. There we go. So this again is just a modular drive. This is just for the disk drive. So again, I'm assuming when this goes, they were just relatively easy to swap out. And these are universal as well, so I've had some from Japan, and this one is interchangeable, so this isn't coded per region, it's the console that is. Refreshment. So pretty grim. See some of the dirt and filth on there. So obviously if that's that dirty, then you can guarantee that the lens is that dirty, especially as that bit is open to the elements and open to the children, as it were. So we'll have a clean of that. And then we're into this. Maybe we can get a bit closer. That's a bit better. So, the big old heatsink on top of the chip. You've got the AV ports at the back, the analog one and the digital one. So some of the GameCube models actually had a digital out, so you could get high definition video out of these consoles. You needed the cable, which now I think on eBay goes for like 200 quid or something ridiculous. So nobody has this cable, but if you were, you'd be using that port. Everyone else just uses that, and it's the same port, I don't know if you recognize it, as basically every Nintendo. So you can use a NES cable, a SNES cable, N64 cable. They're all compatible with that. And then you've got the controller ports on the front. So there's a couple of these flaps. These just pop out. There's actually a tiny little spring on, and that's always the bit I lose. So I just got to be careful with that. And again, these need retro brighting because they are stained. So basically, the problem is ultraviolet light. So you can see this one is more yellow than this one. Probably because this one maybe had a memory card in, so the lid was actually closed, whereas this one was open and left the elements. And it's just sunlight damage. So ironically, the way you cure it is with more sunlight. So you put a really powerful UV light on with some bleach, and it cures it. But we'll see if we've got time to do that later. And then we're into this. So there's some screws holding the heatsink down, and that just basically holds the whole console together. So there's 1, 2, 3, 6 screws. Now you can't take this off because it's actually stuck to the processors. So I think there's a CPU and a separate GPU with thermal paste. So if I was to take this heatsink completely off, I'd be compromising the integrity of the thermal conductor, which is basically to get heat away from the processors. They get really hot, and then the fan that we saw blows air across these fins. So if that's full of pubes, this will not cool properly, and your console won't work and will shut off. So this is a lot of problem that happens, and people say things like, "It doesn't work." It does. You just need to clean it. So with those unscrewed but not taken out, you should be able to just lift this off now. But it's pretty crusty and grim. Sometimes they just stain a little bit. This is where I found out there's one more screw holding everything in that I missed. Can't see one. You guys are usually better at spotting stuff than I am. There we go. So that just lifts off. So that in essence is the console. So if you were to do with the disk drive, you could actually just have that. And people have done that before. People have found a way where you can just run games off an SD card, or you wanted to make it portable. This is essentially it. If you can supply that with 12 volts somehow, and a way of reading game data, that is essentially a GameCube. so it doesn't need to be a cube at all. The actual cube part is just the massive mechanism for the disc tray and the fans. So there's nothing we need to actually take apart on this. It does need a good clean, so I'll get some IPA onto that, and then all we've got left is the base of the console. So again, essentially all this is about is communication. So all the serial ports on the bottom, there's nothing else underneath this console that serves any purpose other than that. And you know, there's only 1 or 2 games that actually utilised anything on this, so unless you were really into playing your your Game Boy games on the big screen, it was actually fun because you could use the controller, and you know, you had big, beautiful, crisp graphics on TV. But you know, why buy a console if you're going to play a handheld? And then there's a couple of little, just a bit of shielding. I mean, as you can see, something has definitely gotten into this console. There is, you know, clearly sort of liquid tide marks on here, so unfortunately chances are something has leaked or been spilled inside, so we'll give it a good clean, but after seeing this inside here, my optimism is dwindling, but you never know. As I say, they're quite robust. There was never any problems with the console like there was with the PS3 and the Xbox 360. You know, there was no Lights of Doom or Yellow Light of Doom or whatever the PlayStation was, Ring of Death. You never got that with the GameCube. It was really robust. By far the best controller of any console I've ever played on, if anyone would agree. Really satisfying. Analog triggers, dual analog sticks, really satisfying chunky buttons. Held in the hand nicely. They had some lovely different options and lovely design. There was even a wireless one, the Wavebird, which again now go for silly money. And then there's a couple of these little metal brackets which just for kind of screwing into, just making the case a bit more secure. So that is it. I mean, that is pretty grim in there. Yeah. Yeah, and last but not least, this little chip. So I think that basically is like kind of a modem. Someone who knows more about electronics than I do could probably correct me. But that underneath there is where the serial port goes. Although it does look a bit more like a power, like a power board for converting for the different voltages inside the console. So I might be totally wrong, because that comes from the power switch. So that might be what it is. So anyway, there you go. Screws out. So you have a bowl of screws, a chunk of plastic, and various circuitry, and that is a Nintendo GameCube. So if I get rid of all this crap, clean some of this up, and we'll see what we've got to work with. This is horrendous knolling. I'm afraid it's not very straight, is it? This is going to stress a lot of people out. That's the console. So I've got a bucket of soapy water down here. I'm going to chuck all the plastic parts in there, just the plastic parts. All it needs is dish detergent and hot soapy water, and all this stuff will come off. The circuitry and the metal parts I'll clean with some isopropyl, and then we'll dry it all off, put it back together and see if it works. And we've got 20 minutes, so let's go. This can all go in there. That can go in there, that can go in there. That can go in, that can go in, that can go in. And the little buttons and everything on the inside should be okay. Ugh. Right. Where's that? So, that one, if anyone knows. Someone definitely did keep it hydrated, you are right. And the console itself was hydrated, so this actually isn't too bad. Let's get some delicious booze on the go. It's just a bit of dust. There's no actual ingress of filth onto that board, so I'm confident that one's fine. Same with this actually. This looks in really good nick. The only problem I've experienced is that that battery, obviously 20 years later, has not kept a charge, and you find that even if you put the time and date in, when you turn the console back on, it's reset, and these are actually like welded into the board, so you can't just swap out that battery. Obviously you could desolder and put a new one on. I'm not that bothered about that, to be honest, but if you really wanted to have it, you know, properly fully working, you could probably replace that. These metal bits, you know, you could like treat these ultrasonically, give them a good scrub. I mean, that stuff is really on there. Whatever it was that's spilt in here has long since fossilized, for want of a better term. I think if we just get rid of the dust, it'll be fine. I've seen them in worse condition than this, especially when the galvanized metal is compromised and then it starts to rust. And that, again, it's just down to dirt. If dirt gets in, it's kind of a snowball effect. It just gets worse and worse. So if you do ever get anything dirty, same with your car, you know, water isn't what makes things rust, it's mud, because it holds the water. So if you have dirt on your car, you know, that's why it will go rusty, not because of the water. And especially if you have salt and other kind of impurities, it's just an accelerant. So as bad as these look, they're not really compromising the actual console, because we're not plugging anything in as of yet, so they're okay. This one's pretty disgusting. I mean, that's actually started to rust there, so that's started to break through the galvanized coating. It's just bare metal underneath. I don't know why this wouldn't be aluminium, but maybe it's not strong enough at this thickness. Give it a good scrub. I'm not really paying attention to the chat, by the way. If anyone's got any questions about this or about any other consoles, please ask. Right, so disgusting fan. Let's just get as much of this filth out as we can. I mean, this is just skin, isn't it? This is just people's skin. So I got these in a batch. There was 5 consoles with no peripherals, no cables, no power supplies, no controllers, and they were all just basically said, you know, not working. Spares or repairs. And so far I've gotten all of them to work. So I'm hoping this is not an exception. And some of them were way worse than this. Some of them were like literally full of hair. At least this is just dust and not too disgusting. I mean, some of them, these fans were like literally clogged. Probably people with pets, maybe. And I think as well, if you smoke, things like electronics get really, really dusty because of the smoke particles. I might be wrong, but I've heard people complain about stuff coming from smokers' houses. Maybe it's just that it smells. So these are always the most disgusting part of the fan, because obviously it's drawing in the most air. And then the bit I'm worried about, as I say, is the lens. You just see my arm. That's a nice shot. Get that right down into there and clean out. Because it's not just the fact that it's dirty. You know, if you've got fan blades caked on with stuff, it's compromising the kind of the stability of the fan and the you know the balance, and with the high speeds that it's spinning. If you've got, you know, big clumps of filth attached to the blades, it's only going to cause stuff to fail. So a lot of the problems with all the machines that we have really in our lives is just them not being clean, not being maintained. If you don't put oil in your engine of your car, it can lead to all sorts of things falling apart, just because something as simple as clean oil. Well, that's a bit better. And then lastly we've got the actual brains itself. Can you pull that up a bit? We're running out of table space. So just get a good clean down in between these fins. That's good for that. Last but not least, I'm actually going to get a little cotton bud just to do the top of that, to do the lens, because the brush might be a bit abrasive. So if you just bear with me, I'm going to run and get some cotton wool. But other than that, this tends to do the job. Now I've discovered that not all brands of IPA are created equally. I'm not sure if it's down to the percentage or the purity, but sometimes you get like a residue left behind, which obviously is not nice on circuitry. But this stuff is good. This stuff like totally evaporates. So that's where the air flows through. So that's where those fins are on the heatsink. So as long as we get this clean, get good airflow. Woo. Right, we've got 10 minutes left. See if we can get this back together and get it working. So, I'm going to very quickly run and get a cotton bud just so I can clean that laser. You've got a 30-second bio break, as we say in agency work. So, take your Q-tip, other brands of cotton buds are available, and just very gently roll it over the lens. Sometimes these can fail mechanically, so it's on a carriage that kind of rides back and forth, but not as often as just being dirty. And it's good to clean the little disc holder as well. I always love this as well, it had a nice little mechanical feature. Right, I think we can try and see if this goes back together. Wish us luck. 10 minutes to reassemble and test. That sounds like a challenge. Right. Boom. So, here's some I cleaned earlier. So you can see how nicely that comes up when you actually retrobrite it. I'll have to show you again because the process is really nice and you actually get really good results for very little effort. So here's all the parts we need. Let's start with the base. Base! Boom. Look, it scrubs up beautifully. Look, it's almost like it's a different bit of plastic. So, if I remember rightly, I've got these little clips. And these go in something along the lines of this, and this, and this. And then we've got our little, I want to say, power circuit. Pops on there. Very nice. I reckon we can do it in 10 minutes. It's nothing. He says, remembering every single live stream he's done so far where he fails to do it. No stress. Take it easy. I know what you're thinking, Al. You don't need to screw it in. Don't bother screwing it in. Some of them are actually grounding screws, so they make a connection. Ask me how I know. So if you fail to put some screws in, it doesn't work. So unfortunately, they've all got to go back in, and we've got 7 minutes. What do you know about pressure? That one fits on there very nicely. That one goes the other way around. There we go. Oh, we're flying, mate. We're flying. There we go. Sometimes there's screws in here, and sometimes there isn't. Riddle me this. I think it just depends on how lazy the person in the factory has been. But the fact that there's 14 screws holding this bit in, I kind of forgive them. Which way around do we want to go? Yeah, that's right. There we go. So the little heatsink screws go back in. I mean, it's basically the reverse of what you just saw me do 2 minutes ago. Yeah, looking at the controller ports, they're a little bit wonky. So I reckon someone has had a little cheeky play with trying to jam something in there. You know what kids are like. Kids can be so cruel. We can? Let's get a bit. Come on, camera work. I'm going to have to work out how to get rid of that frame next time. That's really annoying. It didn't work. It wasn't there previously because I normally run that camera off USB, but I'm running it straight from HDMI today, just as a little test, which is easier on my computer, but obviously it affects the output a little bit. So there we go. Who can remember what's next? I think it's the disk drive. It pops in, and it's the million screws that go around. And we've got to remember not to put the fan ones in, which is that one and that one. No. That one and that one. See, if I had my little electric screwdriver here, I could be flying through this process. But I haven't. And we've got 4 minutes! How confident are we this is going to be together in 4 minutes? Any takers? 5 minute warning. Yes, thank you, Jeremy. I'm well aware. I need support, not stress. Oh, that one doesn't want to go in. It's alright, take your time. You gotta take time to make time. Right, remember when I said you gotta put all the screws in? Bollocks to that. Let's just go for it. Maximum effort. Why is it always down at the wire? Oh, I mean, in my defence, we didn't start till like, what, 8 minutes in? So, we're 8 minutes behind at this stage. Get in there. We've got some new shields for the memory card ports because the other ones were bent. Now I know these have to be screwed in because otherwise there's no connection. So these are the ones that we do actually have to do. Time check. It's getting exciting. Two minutes Turkish. It was 2 minutes 5 minutes ago. A little snatch for John there. A little bit of snatch. Right, in. One. One of four. 2 of 4. 3 of 4. Right, we've got 2 minutes left. Anyone got any requests for what game we're going to play? Because this is going to work. I know it is. Right. Controller. Boom. There goes that. So little time. A minute left. I don't think we're going to do it. I think we are going to do it. Any advances? Yes or no? Yard or 9. Power. Reset. Open. It fell out. We're in. Let's just go for it. Oh, this is such a bad idea. There you are. In goes. It's making a noise. The light is on. TV AV. AV4S. ITV. Red. AV3. Yellow. Yellow. Yes! Success! We're on. Right. Oh well. We got that far. Thanks for joining. It's been emotional. Hang on, can we have a bit of a nicer, like, does it do the GameCube thing when it comes on? Oh, no, it doesn't. Bollocks. Anyway. To be continued. Thanks as always, guys. I knew we'd do it.